The grinder has gone silent in Canning, Nova Scotia tonight. For years, we watched the sparks fly between these two. Jolene McIntyre was more than just a manager for Chad. She was the anchor for the entire Bad Chad operation. But recently, the garage doors remained shut for far too long. Fans noticed the lack of posts and the empty chair. A relationship built on steel and sweat has finally snapped. Today, we are diving deep into the truth of her exit. It wasn't just a simple break or a professional parting. What Jolene just revealed is much darker than anyone expected. The shockwaves are still rippling through the custom car community. Jolene was the face of the business, the voice of logic. She turned a backyard builder into a global YouTube sensation. But behind the viral videos was a reality of immense pressure. Leaving a life built on camera is never a clean break. The mystery began when her presence vanished from the thumbnails. Comments were deleted, and questions were left completely unanswered. Now, the silence has been broken with a heartbreaking confession. She isn't just leaving the shop, she is leaving a legacy. It's time to look at what really happened behind those walls. They were the ultimate ride or die couple of YouTube. Chad Hiltz brought the raw genius and the creative madness. Jolene brought the structure, the marketing, and the sanity. On screen, their chemistry seemed to be fueled by passion. They built incredible machines out of literal piles of junk. But a partnership that thrives on intensity often burns out. Jolene reveals that the workload was far beyond human capacity. They weren't just partners in life, they were co-workers 24/7. Every dinner conversation turned into a debate about car parts. The line between their love and their labor completely vanished. The paradox of their success was the source of their pain. As the channel grew, the demands on Jolene became impossible. She was the editor, the bookkeeper, and the primary camerawoman. She managed the fans while Chad focused on the metal. But Jolene confesses that she began to feel like a ghost. The woman who built the brand was disappearing inside of it. She wasn't Jolene anymore, she was just Bad Chad's manager. This loss of identity is where the first cracks appeared. It's a common story in the world of influencer couples. But for Jolene, the cost of staying was becoming too high. Chad's creative process is legendary for being chaotic and wild. He works on instinct, often changing designs at the last second. For a manager trying to maintain a schedule, this is a nightmare. Jolene reveals that the creative friction was constant and exhausting. They argued over the direction of builds and the filming style. Chad wanted raw reality, while Jolene wanted a professional brand. These weren't just small disagreements about paint or wheels. They were fundamental clashes about the future of their lives. Jolene describes the atmosphere in the shop as increasingly tense. The joy of building was replaced by the stress of production. Worse than the arguments was the feeling of being unheard. Jolene was the one looking at the analytics and the numbers. She saw what worked, but Chad followed his own internal compass. She confesses that she felt like she was fighting a losing battle. The power dynamic in the shop was heavily skewed toward Chad. As the visionary, his word was often final in every situation. Jolene began to realize that her input was becoming a formality. She was the engine of the ship, but she wasn't the captain. This creative stifling led to a deep sense of professional resentment. It was the beginning of the end for their collaborative dream. YouTube is a world built on the illusion of constant happiness. The algorithm demands a positive, engaging presence every single day. Jolene admits that they were performing even when they were hurting. They would film a smiling intro just minutes after a fight. The pressure to keep the fans happy was a crushing weight. She reveals the fake it till you make it culture was toxic. Every like and subscribe felt like a lie during the bad times. They were trapped by the very audience they had worked to build. Jolene confesses that the comments section became a source of anxiety. People loved their perfect life, which made the truth harder. The facade started to crumble during the final few months. If you look back at the older videos, the signs were there. Jolene's smiles were shorter. Her voice was a bit more strained. She stopped appearing in front of the lens almost entirely. Fans began to speculate about a breakup or a health crisis. Jolene reveals that the happily ever after was a total myth. They were two people living in a house full of cold silence. The camera was the only thing keeping them in the same room. Living a double life for the internet is an emotional prison. Jolene finally decided she couldn't live behind the mask anymore. Every collapse has a single moment that triggers the final fall. For Jolene, it wasn't a massive explosion or a public scandal. It was a quiet realization during a late-night editing session. She looked at the footage of her own life and didn't recognize it. She saw a woman who was tired, drained, and completely alone. The breaking point was the moment she chose herself over Chad. She realized that the business would survive, but she might not. The decision to leave was made in the middle of the night. She knew that walking away meant losing everything they had built. But the cost of staying was her mental and emotional health. The actual departure was worse than the fans ever imagined. It wasn't a mutual agreement, or a soft landing for either. Jolene reveals that the conversation was painful and final. She had to pack her life into boxes while the shop sat empty. Chad's reaction was a mix of shock, anger, and profound confusion. He had become so used to her presence he forgot her value. The glue of the operation was suddenly and permanently gone. Jolene admits that the first night away was the scariest of all. She had no job, no channel, and no clear path forward. But for the first time in years, she could finally breathe. The custom car world is a grind that never truly stops. Building a car from scratch takes thousands of hours of labor. Filming that process doubles the time and the mental strain. Jolene confesses that they were living a life of forced production. The schedule was set by the need to pay bills and stay relevant. They were on a treadmill that was moving faster every single month. She describes the physical toll as a constant state of fatigue. Her health began to suffer from the lack of sleep and stress. The grind had turned their passion into a high-pressure factory. She realized that she was working toward a goal she no longer wanted. The worse than we thought part is the level of isolation. Because they lived and worked in a remote part of Nova Scotia. They didn't have a large crew or a support system nearby. It was just the two of them against the world and the internet. Jolene admits that she felt trapped by the geography and the job. She had no life outside of the shop and Chad's creative vision. The isolation amplified every argument and every dark thought. She was a prisoner of the brand she had helped to create. This lack of external perspective made the situation feel hopeless. Breaking free required leaving her entire world behind for good. So, what is the legacy of Jolene and the Bad Chad era? It was a time of incredible creativity and massive digital growth. But it was also a period of profound personal loss for Jolene. We watched the builds, but we missed the breaking of a heart. Her exit is a reminder that people are more important than parts. The machines they built will eventually rust and fade away. But the lessons Jolene learned will stay with her forever. She opened up because she wanted the truth to be known. It's worse than we thought, but she is stronger than we knew. Her journey away from the shop is her greatest build of all. As we look at the empty passenger seat in the newest videos, we should remember the woman who made the journey possible. Jolene McIntyre is no longer just a manager or a girlfriend. She is a woman who chose her soul over a successful brand. Her story is a testament to the power of the word enough. If you're feeling trapped in a dream that isn't yours, listen. You have the right to leave the shop and find your own road. Thank you for following the story of Jolene and her new life. We wish her nothing but the best as she drives into the sunset. The grinder is silent, but the silence finally sounds like home.